theme music. So good. It's got me in a mood. Hello, my honey. Hello, my darling. Hello, my ragtime gal. This is A Lil Spooky, a podcast about things that spook us just a little bit, like cryptids, aliens, conspiracies, or when you're looking at a downloading file and the estimated wait time is 3 years. I'm Everett.
And I'm Colleen.
How are you today, this fine evening, Colleen?
Good, but is it 1920 or 2021?
I don't even know what year it is. Do you know why?
Why?
Because I might as well be frozen in time like Captain America because I am now a super soldier.
What do you mean?
I am fully vaccinated.
Oh,
and
really?
Nobody can stop me.
No. That's old news, bruh. I've been fully vaccinated since March.
Shut your mouth. But now, open it, because what are we talking about today?
Okay, we're talking about a case that has fascinated me forever. Like, I feel like our past few weeks have been some amateur shit, and now we're coming back to the big league.
Excuse you. I worked really hard on my creepypasta last week.
Okay.
And I have received some very positive feedback.
Your creepypasta was very good. While I was editing that episode, heard my voice reading creepypastas and died a little bit on the inside. However, this story is going to redeem it.
Okay.
I live for these stories. This is the kind of story where the probable answer is just as weird as the improbable ones.
And what is this?
This is called the lead masks case. Ever heard of it?
No, I have not.
Well, I'm going to take you back to Brazil.
I've never been.
Well,
How can you take me back?
Oh, God. Okay. Well, on August 20th, 1966, a young man was flying a kite on Vintem Hill in Rio de Janeiro. So he's skipping along, he's flying his kite, whee! When, he stumbles across 2 dead bodies.
That's not good.
No. So, naturally, this young man or boy, I'm not sure how old he is. I read he was somewhere, like he could have been 18 or he could be like 4. What do I know?
Okay.
Young man. He runs down the hill and he goes to the cops. Obviously. Good choice. For some reason, the cops say, we won't be able to get to them till tomorrow because the terrain is too rough.
Wait, where was he? Where did he find them?
He was on Vintem Hill. Vintem Hill. My Portuguese pronunciation isn't great.
Okay. Was the terrain actually hard to get through?
Well,
or was this like a go away kid type
So here's
thing?
my thing. We're talking about a kid skipping up a hill and flying a kite. I can't imagine his stumbling upon 2 bodies was like difficult terrain. If you're flying a kite.
He's not like climbing a mountain or spelunking or anything.
I mean, as far as I know, but again, I've never been there. So it could be, maybe what they meant was it's difficult terrain to bring like all of your criminology equipment.
It's too difficult to deal with dead bodies right now.
Right.
I'm tired.
Either way, they get to him the next day.
Wait, so in the meantime, they're just leaving this dead body
Yes.
there? Or
2 dead bodies. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right. The next day, police make it up the hill to see what this young man saw. And they come across a very strange scene. So there's the bodies of 2 men laying right next to each other, partially covered with grass.
Okay.
They're both wearing formal suits and raincoats on top of this hill. So, I mean, that in itself isn't strange. The weird part is both of them were wearing homemade lead masks that covered their eyes.
Interesting. Just their eyes?
Yep, only their eyes.
Like, what's that guy from Star Trek? Or Cyclops, even better.
Sure.
From
Yes. Like more like sunglasses cut out of a thin piece of lead.
Okay. So it's not really a mask then. It's
a mask in that it's not glasses. You can't see through it. It's
sure.
lead.
Okay, sure.
What's even weirder, though, is the police could not see any signs of a struggle at all. There was no signs of foul play.
So no blood or anything.
No blood, no wounds, nothing that they could see. Honestly, it just looked like the two of them were sleeping.
Okay.
Next to the bodies was a water bottle and a bag containing 2 wet towels.
Damp.
Just got that in those. That was good. So in that bag, there were also the receipts for the raincoats, which had been bought 3 days prior.
Okay.
And 3 million cruceros, which is the currency. I tried to look about the equivalent.
Exchange.
Yes, and the inflation rate was apparently so crazy it's too difficult to guess. I'm gonna guess like a couple $100. I don't think it was like a
crazy amount.
Yeah, I don't think it was like a wealthy.
Sure. Well, they were in suits though.
That's true. They were wearing very nice suits. Next to the bodies, there was also a small notebook that had normal random information in it. But as the police were paging through it, they found this bizarre note written inside.
Send nudes.
1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals signal mask. What do you get from that?
So those instructions were to go to that location, take some kind of pill that presumably either killed them or did something to them, and protect those masks at all costs.
Oh, so you got protect the masks?
Yeah, what was that last line?
After the effect, protect metals signal mask. So what I got is when you see the signal, put your mask on.
Oh, yeah, that makes more sense. I mean, the way it's written, it's simplified. It's just like protect those things.
Even in Portuguese, it was written in improper grammar.
Sure.
So there is no way to decipher what exactly they meant.
Sure.
However, no capsules of any kind were found at that scene. So
presumably ingested.
Sure. If there were capsules, they were in their tummies.
I might be jumping ahead, but was there an autopsy?
Yes.
Okay.
They brought the bodies down the hill to be examined. But
were they decaying at all?
The coroner at the time was, for some reason, incredibly busy. He had like a backlog of bodies he needed to autopsy. I don't know why, but I guess a lot of deaths were happening. So their autopsies were actually not gotten to in a timely fashion at all.
Sure.
As such, there was no search for toxic substances at all. They didn't do any blood tests, and the police didn't push for it because it seemed like a suicide, right? Like two
based
guys.
on the note, too.
Right. Yeah. So they were like, we're busy, skip the blood tests. However, it was noted that there were absolutely no wounds and no signs of trauma. So it seemed like they literally just laid down and died.
Right. And if there's no signs of like a struggle or foul play, then it's safer to assume it is suicide.
Right. So, who were these two men?
Yeah, who are these two men?
They were Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana. They were two men in their mid-30s, and they were electric technicians from a town about 200 kilometers northeast of Rio de Janeiro. So a couple-hour drive. The police, through their investigation, were able to reconstruct their last couple days before they died. So on August 17th, 1966, 3 days before that kid discovered their bodies, Cruz and Viana left their hometown and they told their families that they were going to Rio de Janeiro to buy work materials for their jobs. Is electric technician? Is that electrician?
I guess, yeah. Because by this time, it's not like electronics in the home are super common other than basic appliances and a radio and TV.
They are just always referred to as electric technician or electronic technician.
I bet they're just regular electricians.
Either way. I mean, it's not super relevant. So they told their families they're going to town to, buy stuff for work. They'll be back. So they boarded the bus and they got to the neighborhood of Niterói at 2:30, which is in Rio. That's where the hill is.
Sure.
When they got there, they purchased the 2 raincoats that they were found wearing. And they also stopped at a bar and bought the bottle of water that was found on them. The waitress at the bar remembered them, and she said that Miguel Viana seemed extremely nervous, and he kept checking his watch. Like she thought maybe he thought they were going to be late for something.
Right.
And that's the last time anyone saw them alive. So presumably they went straight from the bar to the hill to die.
Somewhere where they weren't seen.
Right.
Was it raining? Why did they need the raincoats?
We don't know. I don't know. I don't think it was raining. I believe that probably would have been mentioned. But that kind of comes into play in a little bit. And I will give you some of my theories.
Okay.
One thing I do want to elaborate further on before I go on to theories is the makeup of these lead masks. Because you didn't sound like that was too strange to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't really think about it until you brought that up. But, like, I guess lead is used for, like, protection against radiation and x-rays and all that.
Right. So if that were the case, you were protecting yourself against radiation or anything. If you were protecting yourself against anything, you would want the mask to cover your whole face, right? Like, and you would have like slits for your eyes so you could see.
Yeah, but it sounds like whatever they were being protected from would affect their vision.
Maybe. I mean, these were built like blindfolds. They
right, yeah.
Completely covered the eyes. The rest of the head was left out in the open. So rather than protecting their heads and being able to see, these guys, they wouldn't have been able to see anything with these masks on. So they went up this hill, put on masks so they couldn't see anything, and then died.
I don't like the word masks because it's confusing me. It's literally just a blindfold, a metal blindfold.
Essentially, yes. Yeah. It's a metal blindfold.
Okay.
I don't get it. It clearly wasn't being used as normal radiation protection. However, the wet towels and the raincoats could also have been used as like light protection against radiation as well.
Just an additional layer of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what did these guys think they were doing? The coroner did scan their bodies for levels of radiation, but they were at completely normal, regular human levels. Isn't that weird? You just walk out the hill and you see 2 bodies in raincoats with lead glasses on.
Yeah. And did their families say anything? Like, I assume they were very confused about the whole thing.
Right. Well, I will also, they do chime in a little bit.
Okay.
So that's all the facts of the case. It has never been solved, ever. There's never been a
but they ruled
suspect.
They ruled it a suicide. So
it's assumed that it was a suicide, yes.
Right. So there was, I assume, never an active investigation.
Well, they did do
like
a basic investigation.
The preliminary one. Right.
Right.
But there's never been like actual full-on investigation for foul play.
Correct,
anything.
as far as I know.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are many theories. I mean, there aren't that many facts about this case. So the whole thing is a game of trying to piece together like rumors about these guys and stories to make out what might have happened.
Right.
First theory I'm going to present you with is one of the more basic ones.
Okay.
These men could have been illegally selling radioactive materials to members of some underground criminal org.
Sure. Okay.
And then the buyers maybe killed them. You know, maybe there was a disagreement or maybe they wanted to cover their tracks. The buyers killed them and then moved their bodies up to the hill to confuse the police.
Maybe.
That's what I thought.
Well,
too.
I mean, I guess anything is plausible since we don't know too much. But the one thing about that theory that makes the most sense to me is like selling something on the black market, because at least from my very, very limited understanding of Brazil and Rio de Janeiro specifically at this time, there was a lot of like illicit activity when it comes to illegal trading.
Oh.
So I guess that would make a lot of sense.
Sure. And it seems like a plausible explanation in the same way that swamp gas seems like a plausible explanation for a UFO.
Yeah, well, for ghost balls.
Or ghost balls. So here's why I have problems with that. You are selling radioactive materials. In that case, why are you only covering your eyes to protect you from radioactive?
Well, and actually that brings up another thing too. I forgot to mention it earlier. So if they were to actually have taken capsules, isn't there some kind of medication that gives you like an increased immunity to radiation?
Yes, or maybe like
or like some sort of added protection.
Yes, there is, and honestly, I don't.
Maybe that was what
it is.
they
Was
took.
it iodine? Was it iodine
yeah,
capsules?
Something like that. And in that Chernobyl series, they talked about that a lot. I remember.
Yes.
So maybe that was it.
Yes, and that is a major possibility if they're protecting themselves from radiation in general. Iodine tablets or, anti-radiation pills would make sense. Here's my other problem with this organized crime thing. So they're wearing these lead masks. Blindfolds, yeah. Lead blindfolds, if you will, to meet up with members of an organized crime ring. Wouldn't you want to maybe see the people you're selling it to?
Well, okay, so if that whole scenario were to happen, I imagine they're doing some kind of exchange. Maybe they put those blindfolds on when they're showing the product or something.
Or
for protection. But then if they were killed, then the other people put the blindfolds back on.
Or you just made me think of something. Because their note said, wait for signal, protect masks or something.
Right, yeah.
Maybe they put those on to avoid seeing the person they were selling to. True. Like hide identities. Then if that was the case, though, why lead masks? Why wet towels? Why raincoats?
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. And also, it doesn't explain the weird note. And it does not explain the fact that there were no wounds, trauma, or signs of violence. Even if you moved the bodies, my guess is that organized crime syndicate out to kill you is not going to do it without some outward sign of trauma, right?
I would think so, unless it was something very minute or some kind of poison. And since there was no toxicology and the body started decaying.
Yeah, I guess. But if it's going to be that subtle, why bother moving them up, like taking the work to drag these bodies up a hill?
Or maybe it happened on the hill. Maybe the hill was a meeting point to do some kind of exchange.
Could be. So that's the first and honestly probably the most quote unquote logical explanation.
It's a normal explanation.
Yes, it devolves from here.
Set aside like nuclear materials being traded. Because why would these two electricians have that?
So the second explanation, my favorite explanation.
Aliens.
I
was going to ask you if I could share my theory.
Yes, do it now.
Okay,
do it.
Because it is alien adjacent.
Okay, go.
So I don't know much about this hill. I don't know if it's like an actually highly elevated point.
And I truly don't know either. I should have done a bit more research on that.
But my guess is if they were in contact with some sort of alien being, the alien would probably want to meet at a high elevated point that's kind of set apart from the rest of the city, which is kind of what this sounds like. The glasses or the blindfold is to protect them because maybe when this ship or structure is landing, it emits like some sort of really bright light. So it's literally just to protect them from that. And then they have to wait for the signal to take it off when it's safe to do so.
Yeah, dude. That's pretty much this theory.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know what the tablets would have to do with that.
Well, here's what I have written down. Some people have theorized that these two men were in contact with extraterrestrial beings and they were just following their instructions.
Sure.
So the aliens told them to protect themselves from radiation emitting from their descending craft. And perhaps they were told to ingest some sort of specific capsule to protect themselves from space radiation.
Okay.
And wore eye masks to protect their eyes from like super bright lights.
Sure. Yeah.
And honestly, it's about as plausible as anything else, really. I mean, if you're going to use aliens as your excuse,
I mean, if you're
going to explain anything,
this whole situation is very cryptic, obviously. So I mean, it leads to conspiracy like that. I mean, it's just as believable as the first one because there's no proof for the first one either.
Right. Okay. The next explanation I have is considered the most probable explanation. And honestly, to me, it is the weirdest explanation.
This is the most probable.
It's considered the most probable. So a couple months after the bodies were found, a friend of these two men named Elcio Gomez came forward. And he said, those two men were actually members of a secret society of scientific spiritualists. This society heavily used recreational drugs in order to experiment and contact extraterrestrial beings.
Okay.
I mean, that makes sense. It's 1966. Who didn't?
Okay.
Anyways, perhaps in order to perform some strange ritual, the men went up the hill, ingested capsules that contained some sort of hallucinogen.
Just like LSD or whatever.
Right, and then waited for aliens or spirits to contact them.
And then the blindfolds are like kind of just like a
part of their
shtick.
Yes, yep. So then it's theorized they overdosed and died. Now here, okay, I'm going to fully admit I know nothing about hallucinogens at all.
I mean, I don't really either, but from my understanding, I don't think you can overdose on that kind of thing unless you take a lot.
Right. So I did a little bit of research because when I think of drug overdose, I feel like there's some kind of outward sign, like vomit, or like you'd be able to tell that like they choked on something, or like blood vessel,
threw up and choked or something.
So I was looking up. I mean, that's like your typical, I don't know, heroin overdose. So I don't know what it is for hallucinogens. So I looked it up. I didn't see anything that would leave outward signs of overdose. So I guess the signs of overdose on a hallucinogen are rapid eye movement, loss of muscle control, convulsions, seizures, rapid heart rate. All of that stuff would stop after you died and not really leave any evidence.
But is death a symptom of an overdose?
Right, and that's the thing. I don't think overdose
you can,
on
unless you were just like pumped with it.
Right. Well, you can overdose on anything, and I'm sure any drug has the opportunity.
I mean,
to
you can overdose on water. I mean, you would have to be, pumped with it though.
Right. Now, the other thing that's interesting, again, never taken hallucinogens, so I guess I don't really know how you act when you're on that. But it's interesting that they were just like laying peacefully right next to each other,
on top of a hill, staring into the sky. Assuming they don't have.
Yeah. Okay. You're right.
That whole theory makes a little sense. It's and I understand why people would say it's a little more probable, just because assuming their friend is not lying,
right,
and they're actually part of some sort of like Golden Dawn type like weird magic-y culty order, then maybe.
Well, I mean, there's even a little bit more to that. So, here's another theory. Maybe this secret society, this secret scientific society, was more like a cult.
Right.
And maybe they went up there to purposely commit suicide, kind of like, was it the Hail Bop? Where they all killed themselves in order to hitch a ride on the comet.
Yeah, that was Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
So maybe it was something like that. They believed that by killing themselves at a certain time, their consciousness would be.
Yeah, that thought actually did pass my mind too. Like maybe they did commit suicide, but it was kind of for that kind of reason. And that's why they were wearing the weird lead blindfolds.
Right. Well, here's why I don't like that theory.
Okay.
Both of the men, while they were in town, before they traveled up the hill, did actually buy materials for their jobs to bring back home.
Okay.
So why buy work materials just to kill yourself immediately after? Maybe
they received orders from like a cult leader while they were there.
True.
Too.
Possible.
Maybe they were there actually on business, but then decided to do something after that.
True. There's another fact that leads people to think it wasn't suicide, and this to me isn't very convincing. But before they left the bar, they signed an invoice for that bottle of water that they purchased with a note that they would return it for a refund.
Like returning the bottle?
Yes. So when they were done, they'd come back down the hill, bring the bottle back, get a refund, and go home.
For our American listeners, that is something that is very common, not in America.
Yes, man. When you say refund your bottle, that means like
recycling, but you're like actually
refund it to the ground.
What?
I don't know.
You actually get quite a bit of money back if you return your bottles because they reuse it.
Right.
And it's not like recycling in America where you just throw it in a separate bin and it's probably just thrown in the dump too.
Right. Well, the reason I think that's kind of shaky is if I was going somewhere to kill myself, but I didn't want people to stop me, I would, make it seem like I was going to bring it back. Right. But I still don't understand why you would purchase work materials immediately before killing yourself if you went to the town with the plan of committing ritual suicide.
This was all in the space of just a couple days, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So,
well, they died on the 17th, as far as we know, and they were discovered on the 20th.
Okay. But at the same time, though, the police, they took their time too.
Yes.
So it would be, I imagine, a little hard to estimate the time of death if they're decaying and based on weather conditions too.
Correct.
So they, could have bought materials for work that first day.
Well, they had receipts.
Right. They had receipts, so they did buy it the first day, but maybe they stayed the night there and then died the following day.
That's possible. And there was mention that the bodies were decomposed up to a certain point. I mean, at most they would have been dead for 3 days.
Isn't Rio kind of right on the equator? Isn't it super hot?
I'm not sure.
What month was this? Also
August, so summer.
I imagine it's hot.
Right. But I mean, the farthest they can trace it back is August 17th because they have receipts for when things are purchased. But you're right. I suppose they could have
they could have spent some time there. I mean, they could have decided to do some sort of ritualistic suicide, well after they bought stuff for work. But
it was never mentioned that there were signs that they camped there in any way or ate food or moved around or anything.
Or got a hotel or anything.
Right. It seems like they just went up the hill and died.
My question, though, is, and we kind of mentioned it earlier, but if we are to assume that they did actually kill themselves and it was because of these pills that they took, what sort of drug or anything that's ingested will kill you and doesn't give any outward signs?
Well, and that's why I looked up the drug overdose thing earlier, because to me it's very strange that you would kill yourself with any sort of substance and no traces would be left behind. And even if I wouldn't notice it, I feel like an educated coroner would.
Right. Well, and he didn't do the toxicology, so I mean, for sure they don't know if anything was in their blood or in their stomachs or anything. But I mean, maybe there's a drug that just stops your heart, like gives you cardiac arrest or something.
I don't know. There is. He also went in during the autopsy, but he noted that so much time had passed that the organs were too decomposed to notice exactly what happened. So there could be quote unquote outward signs, as in internal organs signs that they would have missed because of decomposition. But there was
definitely no vomit or blood or bleeding eyes or anything like that.
Yep.
But I will say, though, when a body is dead, the internal organs are the first thing to go because of all the bacteria inside starts eating away. So I guess it makes sense that everything wouldn't be way beyond figuring out unless you were to test blood, because I think there would still be blood at that point.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
But they didn't do that.
No. So that's another reason this is such a mystery. So let's go back to the UFOs.
Let's.
Vintem Hill was also said to be the site of frequent UFO sightings.
Why didn't you bring that up earlier?
Well, I'm bringing it up now. Residents around the hill, even today, say that they often witness weird, unexplainable planes buzzing around the hill. In fact, There were multiple articles in newspapers that were respected at the time in the 60s that mentioned a woman who saw a round orange UFO hovering up and down the hill on the night the men went up there, August 17th, 1966. In 1967, I believe March of 1967, so not even a year after these bodies were discovered, a man named Charles Bowen wrote an article for the March edition of the Flying Saucer Review.
Okay.
He believed that the men were attempting to contact extraterrestrial life forms and something went wrong. Apparently, both men were known to be UFO fanatics, just way into it, believed wholeheartedly. And Elcio Gomez, the man who claimed they were part of the secret society, he said that he and those two men built a device in one of their backyards about 2 months before they died. And that device was meant to contact Mars. However, it exploded before they were able to use it. But that just made the men more determined to contact space in a different way.
Sure.
So while investigating one of their workshops, Cruz's workshop, the police found notes that had highlighted passages talking about spirits surrounded by, quote, intense luminosity, end quote. So maybe this is why they made the masks.
Yeah.
So had he contacted these spirits before, knowing that there would be intense luminosity? How would he know that? I mean, you can infer it, I suppose, from radiation.
Wait. So this was an article where it was highlighted. It was notes.
His notes found in his workshop.
Okay.
And this is outlined in that article by Charles Bowen. That's just the source where I got it.
So he highlighted his own notes about the luminosity.
Yes.
It wasn't like from someone else.
Correct.
That he was reading about.
Yes.
Okay.
So my question is, how did he know?
Right.
Had he seen it before?
Well, or if he was in that secret organization, he's just being told stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
No?
Well, there's one more interesting thing.
There's no life on Mars.
That we know of.
We have rovers there.
What about underground? Huh?
I guess.
Yeah, you guess. Psh. Okay, so there's also a report that another electric technician had been found dead on top of a different hill wearing a lead mask 4 years before that.
What the hell?
Here's the problem with that, and this is why I didn't bring this up earlier. I could not find any corroborating sources on that.
Who said this?
This was reported by Charles Bowen in that 1967 article. Okay. The problem with my researching this story is the majority of information is in Portuguese. Yeah. I can't find direct English translations, so generally what I get are English summaries that people write over and over and over again for different articles.
Just copy and paste that from a different website.
Correct. So I couldn't find any corroborating sources. I feel like if that were the case and a body was discovered in 1962, it would be just as well known as this case with the two men.
Right.
But even if that body found 4 years earlier didn't even exist, there's clearly some kind of UFO craze going around the Brazilian electrician community in the 60s. So, I mean, that does kind of corroborate the idea that there may have actually been a secret scientific spiritualist society. And honestly, I mean, weirder things exist.
And it sounds, since they're all electricians, it sounds like it's just a little club of like 10 dudes that are like talking about aliens together.
Right.
Which is fine, but it's interesting that two different occurrences of the same exact thing happened. If we are to believe that first one in 62 did happen.
Right. So those are the theories. Okay, from everything I just said, I guess the probable explanation is that there was a society of people in Brazil in the 60s who were interested in contacting UFOs or discovering extraterrestrial or spiritual life. And these two men tried several ways to contact them and came up with some kind of ritual involving some mysterious drug they went up the hill, they took the pills, waited for aliens, and overdosed, or maybe purposely died.
Right.
What do you think?
I think based on all of the information, it does make a lot of sense that there was some sort of club or secret organization. I don't think they were trying to kill themselves on purpose, though. I bet they were taking some sort of drug, and maybe it wasn't like actual LSD or something, which is, I mean, it can definitely screw with people, but I think you can't really die from it. So maybe it was like some sort of tainted drug that's a hallucinogen.
Yeah, or maybe they were given a drug, told it was one thing, but it was actually another thing.
Right. So yeah, I think they were all in a club together and tried to like hallucinate in order to like speak with outer space and then die.
And in the 60s, this is also mentioned in Charles Bowen's article, but it's also kind of common knowledge that there were like yoga retreats, clubs, spiritualist groups at the time that used psychedelics for this purpose.
Right.
So they're documented ones. It's not necessarily just this secret society. No. So it's very plausible that something like this would exist.
For sure. And I mean, you still hear about it today where people like, will take some sort of hallucinogen and go into the desert.
Right.
And like try and have a vision of some kind or speak with aliens.
Right.
But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense that they were given some cheap, bad drugs and died because of it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Like that's the most probable explanation. But honestly, it's missing stuff. There's things missing. And I don't...
Of course there's stuff missing.
Okay. The luminosity. The intense luminosity.
I thought you were going to say the Illuminati.
Honestly, we could bring them in. Let's bring them in. Why not? But what evidence does these two men have that there would be intense luminosity surrounding these quote-unquote beings? Did they have a previous trip where they experienced this? Or did they actually, I don't know, somehow contact extraterrestrial life and note that lead masks would be necessary for further communications?
Maybe.
No answers there. Why were the times in the note so precise? Like it sounds like they were meeting somebody, like there was an appointment. If you were going to go up there to, commit a ritual suicide, I suppose if you've got very detailed ideas of what's happening, there may be a certain time you need to do it. I can't imagine that you would be nervous enough that a waitress would notice you continually checking your watch to make sure you won't be late to kill yourself.
Right. That's why I think they weren't planning on killing themselves. I think they thought they had an appointment with a UFO.
Right.
And they couldn't be late.
Right. Right. And the note, the note said, wait for mask signal, which, like I said earlier, to me means they're waiting for someone else to tell them to put the masks on. So who else was there? And I read two conflicting reports. One said that the men were wearing the masks, and another one said that the masks could have been on the ground or on the men. What we know is that they were photographed separately. Like by the time we got photographs of what the masks were and of the men, like the crime scene investigators had separated them. And they didn't know whether or not the men were wearing them upon discovery. But if they were wearing them, then who gave them the signal to put them on?
Well,
who else was there?
Well, or maybe that's not it at all. My thought is maybe they were under the impression when they were on drugs that they were telepathically communicating with these aliens and they were to arrive. So they would tell them telepathically to put on their protective glasses right before they arrived.
Yeah. Your theory's making more sense, and I don't like how logical you're being. So I'm going to give you my theory. And it's way more fun.
Don't be mad. My theory's fun too. What are you talking about?
Your theory could have actually happened in real life, and I don't think that's as fun.
Well, let's hear it.
Okay. I will admit my theory's a little ridiculous. But we're talking about aliens or spirits or whatever, so really, which one of us is being ridiculous? You, because yours is too mundane.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Maybe.
I hate it.
I deserve that. maybe these two guys had actually discovered a way to communicate with aliens.
Okay.
And that's how they became aware of the radiation and the intense light, and that they wouldn't need to cover their entire faces. It would only be necessary to cover their eyes. They were given instructions, specific capsules to take to protect themselves. And they were told to meet on that hill at a specific time. The hill being one that the extraterrestrials frequent because people see UFOs there all the time. They wore the eye protection and had wet towels and raincoats, and the capsules were meant to offset any radiation effects. And when they got there, the aliens actually appeared. And instead of meeting and then finishing the meeting and then going home, the aliens convinced them to upload their consciousness to some sort of device and then leave their bodies behind. So the two men aren't actually dead. They're in space somewhere. And wait, not done. Maybe these two guys were some of the humans that guy saw when he visited Lanulos in our Injured Cold episode weeks ago. Maybe it's all connected. I think it is. They all take place around the same time. Aliens are real.
I don't like it. I mean, I like the idea more if aliens were real in this circumstance, that they were trying to do a Heaven's Gate type thing, and they were just trying to get on board by leaving their bodies.
Yeah, but the fun part is that they actually did get in contact with them. Can we just say that happened?
I don't know.
I don't want to believe that two guys just thought that something was going to happen and then they died before it happened. It just makes me sad.
People die every day, Colleen.
Look,
you know what? We just got to keep living. We got to learn from our mistakes. And always carry a towel with you, because it does get wet out there. And I think they knew that.
Look, I just think that there are still enough unanswered questions that even the mundane explanations are not enough. And even the weird-ass explanations like aliens aren't enough. What happened on that hill on August 17th, 1966? We're never going to know. Ever. Well, likely, unless an alien comes down and says, hey, remember those two guys? That was us.
Well, we could find out in the next couple months, too.
Valid point.
We never know.
Well, only if Brazil gets in on the releasing their UFO info.
True.
Anyways, that's it. That story, I love that story. I mean, it's not a nice story because people are dead, but it's a very fascinating story, and that's my kind of shit.
I have never heard that story, too. It was very, very interesting.
Very interesting. Really, though, what did you think? Is it a little spooky?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the cryptic note is the thing that's most interesting to me. I mean, of course, the masks too, but I don't know why did I think at first that they were trying to protect the masks and not use the masks to protect themselves?
Because you read a lot of fiction books that require, I don't know, like Dan Brown shit.
I've never read a Dan Brown book.
Okay, fine. I'm projecting. That's me.
Anyway, do you want to hear something disturbing? I have a disturbing news story.
Okay. I mean, do I have a choice? Yes, I want to hear it for the sake of our listeners.
All right. Michigan woman glues eyes shut after mistaking nail glue for eye drops.
Oh my God, is this another Gorilla glue for hairspray situation?
So, this was 3 days ago. So, that would have been the 23rd of April, the year of our Lord, 2021.
Okay.
A Michigan woman nearly lost her vision last week after she mistook a bottle of nail glue for eye drops. The woman...
to be fair, they look the exact same.
Yeah.
And nail glue is straight up super glue.
They say that. Like, they look the same right here, too. Mm-hmm. So the woman said that she went to sleep with her contact lenses in, but woke up at 1 a.m. and wanted to take them out because her eyes were dry.
Sure.
So she reached inside her purse and grabbed what she believed to be the eye drops, but instead she took out a very similar looking white bottle of nail glue, which she typically uses to repair broken fingernails.
Sure. Aww.
She said that her husband was with her when she realized the mistake, and this is a quote. I was like, "Oh my goodness," and I dropped it in my eye, and I was about to wipe it away, and it sealed my eyes shut.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff's instant.
I just started throwing cold water, and I was trying to pull my eyes apart, but I couldn't, and I was just screaming for him to call 911.
Oh, I don't like it.
So they were rushed to a hospital. Doctor was able to open her eye and remove the contact lens, and the doctor said that if she was not wearing contact lenses, she would have almost certainly lost her vision. So that contact lens actually did save her.
Okay, that is a disturbing story. And at first I was going to make fun of her, but honestly, middle of the night, 2 same looking bottles, you're not really thinking, oof.
One last thing to say about this. The doctor in question that helped this lady out says, for safety reasons, if this were to happen to you, immediately go to a sink or faucet and just dunk your head in the water. Don't care about making a mess.
Yeah.
Because that is the only thing that could potentially save your vision.
Potentially.
Right. Yeah, you're probably not going to save it.
Right. I mean, I'm just thinking of the times I have used nail glue and I have glued my fingers together.
Oh, I thought you were going to say all the times you put nail glue in your eyes.
Yeah. I can see perfectly fine.
Be safe out there, people.
Right.
Don't do that.
You know those mosquito bite sticks?
Yeah, and you rub them on.
You like rub it. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you get a mosquito bite. When I was probably like 12, told my cousin that one of those was chapstick. And she looked at me and she was like, it's got a mosquito on it. Of course it's not chapstick. And I was like, fine, it's not chapstick. And she was like, fine, it is chapstick. And put it on and her lips were numb for a really long time. And I still enjoy that memory.
So you're the worst kind of person.
Yes.
Because of that. Anyway, that's all we got for today.
Yes.
If you would like to send us a personal spooky story, if you have an episode topic request, or if you just want to talk to us, send us a DM on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or at NerdSloth HQ.
Yes, and I'm usually the one who responds on Facebook and Instagram.
I will respond on Twitter most likely.
Yes, and I if you have comments, questions, requests, creepypastas, cool news articles you found, I would love them. And we recently got a request, and I will be covering that.
We got a few requests, so
True.
I think the next series of episodes will be listener-requested topics.
Yes.
But I think that is it. And check out our merch store as well.
Check out our merch store. And sorry, our email is podcast@nerdsloth.com. So thanks for listening to us. This was my favorite story so far. I hope you enjoyed it.
And we love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Presented by NerdSloth,
a place for lazy nerds.
If you like what you heard, consider donating at patreon.com/nerdsloth so we can continue bringing you quality shows. Be sure to also leave us a review and share your favorite episodes and clips on social media. If you're looking for more content, visit us at nerdsloth.com.